The courtroom in Dallas County was unusually tense for a civil hearing. The kind of tension that buzzed beneath the surface. Not loud, but present in every glance, every whispered note between legal clerks. It was just past 9 a.m., and the Monroe v. Ashland correctional case had entered its fourth day. No national headlines, no camera crews, just a packed room of law students, local reporters, and retirees who never missed a good courtroom drama. Then the back doors opened. Jasmine Crockett walked in without fanfare. No entourage. No announcement. Just a small leather notebook in one hand and a gold cross necklace resting over her collarbone. She wasn't there as a congresswoman. She wasn't even there as legal counsel. Just an observer. At least, that was the plan. She wore a sharp black blazer and walked like someone used to difficult rooms. Eyes forward. Posture upright. The cross wasn't flashy, no diamonds, no sparkle. Just gold. Smooth and aged. If anyone had asked, she might have explained it once belonged to her grandmother. But no one asked. She sat in the front row, behind the plaintiff, a 67-year-old black veteran named Cecil Monroe, and nodded subtly to the plaintiff's attorney, Lauren Gates. No smile. Just professional recognition. Lauren nodded back and returned to reviewing her notes. The buzz of the room softened as Judge Raymond Driscoll entered. "Be seated," he said without looking up, robe brushing against the wood panels as he moved toward the bench. Driscoll was in his late 50s, known for a no-nonsense demeanor and his strict enforcement of courtroom rules. No gum, no cell phones, no outbursts. His eyes scanned the room like a teacher taking silent roll call. Then he paused. He had seen her, or more precisely, the necklace. "Madam," he said, voice clear and curt. "You in the front row." "Yes, you. Please remove that necklace." A soft murmur rolled through the gallery. Lauren's pen froze mid-sentence. Cecil shifted in his chair. Jasmine looked up calmly. "Your Honor," she said, "this is a personal item, not a statement." Driscoll didn't flinch. "This is a court of law. We do not permit religious symbolism visible to the jury, as it may be construed as prejudicial." Jasmine stayed steady. "I'm attending in a personal capacity, not in front of the jury. You're still in visible view. Court protocol is clear." Driscoll tapped his gavel lightly. "You may remain, but you'll be fined $200 if the necklace stays." Someone coughed. A reporter slipped out quietly, already texting an editor. Jasmine gave a small nod. "Then I'll accept the fine." She didn't argue. She didn't leave. She just picked up her pen and resumed writing in her notebook. Cecil leaned toward Lauren and whispered, "That's her, isn't it? Congresswoman Crockett." Lauren nodded. Didn't expect her here either. The hearing continued, but something had shifted. The air had weight now. The woman who had just been fined for a necklace, one she'd worn since the day she passed the bar, sat silently composed. But those who'd been in enough courtrooms knew, silence didn't mean surrender. Sometimes it meant strategy. And Jasmine Crockett wasn't done. Not even close. The hearing pressed on, but something in the room had changed. Judge Driscoll kept glancing toward the front row, his jaw tight. Not because Jasmine Crockett had argued, she hadn't. But because she hadn't flinched. She hadn't apologized. She had simply remained. Lauren Gates, the plaintiff's attorney, continued laying out the case. Cecil Monroe, a Vietnam veteran, had been wrongfully held in Ashland Correctional due to a clerical error. He left with broken ribs, nerve damage, and a limp he hadn't walked in with. The photos, medical records, and sworn affidavits made a compelling narrative, but Judge Driscoll demanded facts, not feelings. Then came Daniel Sturgis. The defense attorney carried himself like a man who'd never lost a case he cared about. Mid-40s, gelled hair, custom-tailored suit, and a voice that slid between charm and disdain like a coin flipping in midair. He opened with a jab at Monroe's credibility, referencing a decades-old bar fight and implying that Monroe's injuries were pre-existing. Jasmine watched, unmoved. Her pen moved quickly, not with anger but with calculation. Each time Lauren objected, she was overruled. When she pressed the timeline of the assault, Judge Driscoll cut her short. The message was clear. This courtroom didn't reward emotion. It rewarded precision. And in this moment, precision belonged to the defense. Then came the break. 10 minutes. Enough time for the courtroom to breathe. Some stepped outside. Others checked messages. But Jasmine remained seated, eyes still. The bailiff approached her. "You really gonna pay that fine?" he asked. "I am," she replied. "But not today." He raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Across the room, Lauren stood and gathered her notes. She reached for her folder and dropped it. Dozens of pages scattered across the floor. Without hesitation, Jasmine stood and helped her pick them up. "You okay?" she asked softly. Lauren blinked, surprised by the question. "Yeah, just a long morning." "You're doing better than they want you to think," Jasmine said, handing her the last sheet. Lauren offered a faint smile. "Thanks." Then Jasmine added, low but firm, "You think he would have fined a man for wearing a yarmulke?" Lauren paused. "No, I don't." Before she could respond further, the bailiff announced the judge's return. The gallery settled. Cecil took the stand. His voice was steady at first, describing the morning he was yanked from his cell without warning, cuffed too tightly, and slammed into a wall. But Lauren's voice had changed. She sounded breathless, not from nerves, from something deeper. She reached for the next page and hesitated. Blinked. Her hand trembled. Then, without warning, her knees buckled. Gasps filled the courtroom. A loud thud as she collapsed. The judge froze mid-sentence. A nurse in the gallery rushed forward. Paramedics were called. The room spun into quiet chaos. Jasmine was the first to kneel beside her. She was pale earlier, Jasmine said. Didn't mention feeling sick. Lauren was still breathing, but shallowly. Her pulse was erratic. The paramedics moved quickly, wheeling her out on a stretcher through the same aisle she'd entered with confidence just an hour earlier. Judge Driscoll rubbed his temple. "This court will recess. Counsel is indisposed. We'll reschedule." But Cecil stood. His voice shook. "Your Honor, I can't afford another delay. I can't afford another lawyer." He turned, looked straight at Jasmine. "You can, right? You're a lawyer, ain't you?" The gallery turned too. All eyes on her. "I'm not part of this case," she said carefully. "But you could be," he replied. "You heard everything. Please." Driscoll cleared his throat. "Miss Crockett, are you licensed in Texas?" "I am." "Are you willing to represent the plaintiff?" Jasmine looked at Cecil. At the empty chair beside him. Then back to the judge. "I'll need a few minutes to review the file." "You have 10, Driscoll said. And just like that, the gallery erupted in whispers. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She stood. She walked to the plaintiff's table. And as she opened the file, one truth became clear. She wasn't just going to step in. She was going to take over. The courtroom was tense. Judge Driscoll returned from chambers. His tone was clipped, almost perfunctory. "Miss Crockett, you are now counsel of record for the plaintiff?" "I am, Your Honor." "You may proceed." Jasmine stood with the quiet confidence of someone who knew how to argue, but didn't need to shout to be heard. She approached the jury like a teacher, not a performer. "My client," she began, "is not asking you to undo the past. He's asking you to acknowledge it happened." She clicked to the first slide. The intake form marked "Release Approved." The date was clear. January 11th. The same day before the alleged assault. He was supposed to be home. He was supposed to be out of harm's way. Instead, he was assaulted on the inside of a system that should have already let him go. Jasmine paced slowly. Her tone was steady, never rushed. "Now we've heard arguments. We've heard doubts. We've heard a lot about credibility." She held up the internal incident report from Ashland Correctional. But the institution itself, without meaning to, confirmed something happened that day. They just never told him. Sturgis objected. Overruled. Jasmine continued. "We heard from a witness, Jerome King. The defense tried to discredit him for a 5-year-old conviction." She paused. "But what they didn't tell you is that Mr. King volunteered his testimony. No deal. No reward. Just the truth." She tapped the floor plan diagram again. His bunk faces Monroe's cell. The timeline matches. The details match. And no one, has been able to prove he lied. She returned to the plaintiff's table, rested a hand on Cecil's shoulder. "And then there's Mr. Monroe himself. He's not perfect. He's not polished. But he's consistent. Every account, every record, every bruise matches his story. He's not asking for sympathy. He's asking for accountability." Then she turned to the jury. "That's your role. To weigh the facts. To hold the powerful accountable. To remind us all that what happens behind locked doors still matters." She sat. A long pause followed. The judge nodded. "Defense may proceed." Sturgis tried. He challenged inconsistencies. He leaned on logic, legal definitions, gray areas. But it was too late. The room had shifted. The jury wasn't buying detachment anymore. After closing arguments, Judge Driscoll addressed the jury and gave instructions. They retired to deliberate. Cecil was quiet. Jasmine sat beside him, hands clasped over her notes. She didn't whisper. She didn't review. She just waited. The jury returned in under 2 hours. The clerk stood. Has the jury reached a verdict? A woman in the third row rose. We have, Your Honor. The verdict, in favor of the plaintiff. The damages, $285,000. A quiet gasp moved through the gallery. Cecil didn't speak. He just sat, staring forward. Then, slowly, he exhaled, like something inside him had finally been released. Jasmine reached out. A light squeeze of his arm. Nothing more. Driscoll tapped the gavel. Court is adjourned. But then, something unexpected. Miss Crockett, a word? She paused. When the courtroom emptied, she walked to the bench. Driscoll stepped down. No robe. Just a man now. I reviewed the fine I issued this morning, he said. She waited. I was wrong, he admitted. It wasn't about the necklace. It was about control. I didn't expect to be challenged. Jasmine didn't respond. Just listened. I'm striking the fine from the record, he said. Dismissed. Thank you, she said simply. You were the sharpest lawyer in the room, Driscoll added. I didn't come here to prove anything. I know, he said. That's what made it work. Then he glanced down. How long have you had that necklace? Since I passed the bar, she said. But I've worn it longer. He nodded once. Don't stop. She turned and walked out. Outside, the media waited. Microphones flew. A camera zoomed. But Jasmine didn't grandstand. It wasn't about me, she said. It was about someone being hurt and needing help. A reporter asked, Did the judge apologize? Jasmine smiled faintly. Let's just say we had a respectful conversation. And a fine was issued and withdrawn. And with that, she turned and walked away. No entourage. No press conference. Just a woman with a notebook in one hand and a gold cross on her collarbone. Visible. And untouchable.